Good morning and welcome to our Veterans Day Sunday service here at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Laguna Beach. My name is Don. Good morning, good morning, good morning. There's actually people here. Let's act like we're alive. Good morning. There we go. My name's Don West Jr. and I'll be serving as your worship associate today. I'm very excited because this is my first time back in the building since COVID started. This is my first time here. The very first COVID service we did, I did it with Reverend Stephanie Exbach Dale, and we were the only three in the building. And I'm very happy to be back with you guys again in person instead of just a box on Zoom. We will be entertained today by the incomparable and lovely Carol Cole, who is our music director here at UUFLB. And we have Doris Gorecki and Pam Floodman back on the ones and twos, as they would say at the club, but they're handling our AV and our Zoom technology. In Unitarian Universalism, we accept you for who and what you are. At UUFLB, we are a welcoming congregation with membership open to all. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever has brought you to join us in worship today, it is the right reason to be here and welcome. We unconditionally welcome all of you to our community of mutual caring and serious intent to grow as spiritual and moral beings. Unitarian Universalists subscribe to no single religious creed, but have gathered a set of 7 principles that guide us as we build religious community together. Today, we're very lucky to have with us the Reverend Nancy McDonald Ladd delivering a sermon called Old Growth. As some of you know, this summer we did a 5-week series, and we looked at Reverend Ladd's book and we discussed it for those 5 weeks. It was very enlightening. It was chock full of history and very, very big words. So thank you for sending us to the dictionary, Nancy. I shared with her before we got started that I haven't had to look up that many words in a very long time. One of the things that I'm most complimented on is my vocabulary. So that says a lot that she had me in the dictionary. Every page of the entire book, I had to look up at least one word. But Reverend Nancy McDonald Ladd has served as senior minister at River Road Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Bethesda, Maryland since 2012. It says out there on the interwebs that she's passionate about preaching, liturgy, and social justice. Her first commitment is the building of relationships to sustain and challenge us to grow braver in the face of brokenness and loss. Using her background in community organizing, pastoral ministry, and worship design, her goal is to equip colleagues and lay leaders to do the work that is uniquely theirs to do in the congregation and in the world. She lives in Bethesda, Maryland, is joining us by Zoom, and she lives with her husband and her 2 children. And I asked her if she would share with us what she thought was the principle that her sermon, Old Growth, most touched on. And so without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the much esteemed from Bethesda, Maryland, Reverend Nancy McDonald Ladd.
Hi all, and thank you so much, Don, for inviting me. And I am sorry to make you go to the dictionary so much. I promise, as a preacher, I am less nerdy than I am as an author. And so it's a great pleasure to be with you. Today's sermon, which draws from themes of nature and interconnection, is really about change. And I think it's about coping with change and doing it together with humility and grace and community. And so I'm going to call it our number 3, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, because fundamentally spiritual growth implies the existence of great courage, including the courage to change. We can't grow spiritually unless we are ever becoming some new version of ourselves and doing it with humility and grace together. So thank you, Don.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. And if you're interested, the 7 principles are on our website. I think they're also in the hymnal somewhere, but I'm not 100% sure. But I kind of dig the 7 principles. When I first walked in here, my first time, I read the 7 principles, and it was kind of the hook that got me in after I read the first principle. I said, if that can be written down on paper and aspired to, I'd like to be a part of that community and that aspiration. Each Sunday, anywhere there is a service held in a Unitarian Universalist church, a chalice is lit. Today, my good friend Carol, who has joined us from Costa Mesa, is going to come up and light our chalice for us. Thank you so much, Miss Carol. And our chalice lighting words are going to come from the Gray Hymnal. It's selection number 447 from Albert Schweitzer as Carol lights the chalice for us. At times, our own lights go out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us let's try that again. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude to those who have lighted the flame within us. So thank you very much for lighting that for us. And now on the screens, we're going to have our centering thought come up for today. And our centering thought comes from Walt Whitman. If you'd like, I invite you to unmute yourselves on Zoom if you would like. Join your voice in with ours. And here in the building, if you would like to read it out loud, I invite you to do that as well. Just give us a second. There we go. Love, that is day and night. Love, that is sun and moon and stars. Love, that is crimson, sumptuous, sick with perfume. No other words of love, no other thoughts but love. And that came to us from Walt Whitman. And now it's time for one of my favorite parts of the service as she pops to it. Hymn number 42, Morning So Fair to See. Take it away, Carol. Okay, I just went to the back and told Pam I was gonna go to Reverend Nancy for the call to worship, but I realized I forgot all of our announcements and our upcoming services. So if Pam can pull those up for us, I will go back to our welcome portion where I intended to run through our announcements and share with you what we have coming up on the calendar for the next couple of weeks. So as you can see there on 11:20, we have Chris Hoff joining us. On 11:27, Candace Halls, who is the founder of OC Normal, and will be giving us a talk that also involves the current state of cannabis in California. 12:04, we have Lawrence Ingalls coming up doing a wonderful music service for us. And we're still working on 12:11, but we promise to have a wonderful selection for you on that date as well. And I want to thank everybody who's put together the services. Kendra works tirelessly reaching out to find people to come in and serve for us every week. So thank you, Kendra, as well as her mother who sits here with us, Rachel. Thank you so much for making it possible for her to work on our behalf tirelessly every week. And we have a couple of announcements. We're doing a food drive, clothing of a collection of warm clothing for the homeless, and that's happening at Tapestry. But if you can bring those here, Rachel and Brian have graciously offered to take those over to Tapestry for us. There's a specific list of the types of clothing that they're looking for, so you can check out that in the email blast that was out. We also have the first Thursday of every month, we assist over at the assisted living facility. And the first Thursday was that last Thursday? Or is it this Thursday, Candy? 2 Thursdays ago? Well, just keep that in mind that every first Thursday, in conjunction with Tapestry as well, we help with feeding at the alternative sleeping location. On 12/4, after our Sunday service, there will be a congregational meeting. We'll be going over our revised bylaws and adopting those revised bylaws that have been approved by the board. We'll be coming together as a congregation for that. So keep that on your calendars. And every Monday, our very own Paul Bogdan hosts our Zoom at noon discussion group that keeps us in community. What's the subject this week, Paul? Do you remember? This week, we're going to be just winging it, but I have been able to get in. Monday is a heavy work day for me, but I've been able to get in once or twice, and Paul leads a very lively and interesting discussion every week focused on living the journey. So check in on that. So without further ado, now we're going to kick it to Reverend Nancy for our call to worship.
And I won't even be winging it, though I think you should go to the winging it themed Monday Zoom, because that sounds fantastic. Our call to worship is, to me, meeting me where I'm at here in the tail end or perhaps somewhat the middle of election season. It is a prescription for the disillusioned by the great poet Rebecca Del Rio. Come in to this new day. Remove the rigid overcoat of experience, the notion of knowing, the beliefs that cloud your vision. Leave behind all the stories of your life just for now. As we gather, spit out the sour taste of your unmet expectations. Let the stale scent of what ifs waft right back into the swamp of all your useless fears. Arrive to this time together, curious, without the armor of your certainty. And the plans and planned results of the life you've imagined. Live the life that chooses you today. New every breath, every blink of your astonished eyes. In that spirit, come let us worship together.
Thank you. So I can see that all of you can see that we're a small and intimate group here, and we have a couple of guests. So I would just like to extend a welcome to you. Thank you for joining us this week. And now we're about to move into our unison affirmation. And so when we do our unison affirmation, it's going to come up on your screen. For the guests, if these words resonate with you, I invite you to join us in affirming our purpose for being here as we do every week. And if you're on Zoom, I invite you to unmute yourselves so you can join your voice in with ours. The cacophony that occurs on the Zoom window is quite unique, but still all of our voices gather together and become one. So here we go. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and
Spirit and service is its law.
our great
This is our great covenant to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Just now I had an experience. Barbara, Barbara would always refer to her glasses and say,
Dawn, get over by your microphone.
I can't do both. And I didn't know what she was talking about at that time. Yet. But now I'm in a similar situation where I have to choose of either seeing back there or seeing up here. Right now, we're going to jump into a responsive reading, and the responsive reading comes from our gray hymnal. It's number 651 in our gray hymnal. It's going to be up on your screen. The body is humankind. I'm going to read the words that appear in regular text, and I ask us all to read together the passages that are going to appear in italics. And this comes to us,
Dawn,
cousins. And if you do want to follow along, again, it's number 651 in the gray hymnal. I am a single cell in a body of 7.7 billion cells. The
body is humankind.
I
I am a single cell.
My
My needs are individual, but they are not unique.
Together,
I am interlocked with other human beings in the consequences of actions, thoughts, and feelings.
I will work for human unity and human peace, for a moral order in harmony with the order of the universe.
Together, we share the quest for a society of the whole, equal to our needs.
A society in which we need not live beneath our moral capacity, and in which justice has a life of its own.
We are single cells in a body of 7.7 billion cells. The body is humankind.
Now we've come to a time in our service where we take time as community to share our joys and sorrows. It's a time where we pause the recording and we allow everyone to share anything that might have occurred since last week when we were last together. So with that, if there's anybody on Zoom that has a joy or sorrow they would like to share, we'll open it up to the Zoom audience. And then after the participants on Zoom have an opportunity to share, if anybody in the building has something to share, Dar will bring the iPad around, and that way everybody can join in with that. So I see Oakley has his hand up. There you go, Mr. Oakley.
Don, I just wanted to thank you for being the worship associate this morning, but wanted to mention to you that we cannot hear you when you step away from the podium. So
We start off. And at this point in the service, it is the time for our offertory. It is as much a joy to give as it is to receive. It's a blessing, in fact. In this self-governing and self-sustaining community, we recognize that it's our responsibility to do both well, to give and to receive. So as candy passes around the basket here, there'll be a slide that comes up that allows you to give electronically if you so wish. And we will be entertained momentarily by some lovely tunes from Carol Cole. 2 ways to give electronically on the screen, and the old-fashioned way of sending it through the mail here to the building at the UFLB. So take it away, Carol. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And now, if you feel comfortable, please rise here in the building. You can rise at home if you want to on Zoom. And we are going to sing From You I Receive to You I Give. It's a tradition after the offering here every week. Take it away, Carol. You I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. Marilyn, to our very, very intellectual and wordy guest, Reverend Ladd. She's going to lead us in a centering meditation, and then she will take us into our sermon.
I want to invite you, as you're able, to take a comfortable seat, maybe even a deep breath, here in the midst of so much happening in our lives and in our nation and in the world this Veterans Day weekend, for a guided moment of prayer focused on what it is to be of service. Spirit of life, source of love, you who move within, among, and beyond us, we gather in this place as people willing to be of use, to be put to the task of something worthy of our efforts and our energy. We gather in this place knowing we are grateful for the service of so many who went before, both on this Veterans Day weekend, of those who have served in our nation's armed forces, and in love and compassion for those yet to serve. We know that we each are called to take the piece of the work that is most holy in our own hands and carry it forward, not just for our own days, but for the days and the years to come, when those who follow us will indeed shade themselves under trees that we planted, will, as the sages once said, quench their thirst from the wells that we have dug. Today, as we honor those who have served in the ways that asked of them so much the measure of their devotion, may we also ask of ourselves what it is we are willing to lift up for the good of the whole. May we bring to the table of community the bulk of our courage, the core of our conviction, the big, wide, open vastness of our willingness. As we serve, may our spirits be fed. And as we serve, may we in turn feed others. The future of our congregations, our communities, our nation, our world, and our own well-being depend upon our ability to lift these good gifts up to the altar of humanity, to give not just, of course, our resources, but of our capacity, so that together we might build a fairer and more free world for each and every one of us, fulfilled by the act of serving, sustained by how we lift ourselves up to each other. Amen. And blessed be. Thank you so much. It really is such a gift to be with you all here in Laguna Beach, even if from a distance. It's such an honor to know that so many of you this summer, did some thinking and some sharing and some talking about that little book I wrote. And such an honor, even more so, to be a part of a larger Unitarian Universalist family. I feel at home among you, even from a distance. Today's sermon, it took its inspiration, in fact, from a California architect, Bernard Maybeck, whom some of you may know his work. It's mostly in and around the Bay Area. And there was a time when someone asked Maybeck what it was that the people could do to best maintain the most spectacular architectural wonders that he ever designed. And what he told them when they asked that question was simply this: plant redwoods, he said. Plant redwoods all around my buildings and let them grow and grow and grow while the marble and the iron and the pavement and the stories and the strivings of all the people carry on around them. Plant redwoods, he said, all around the footprint of every masterpiece I have ever made, and watch every marble palace crumble beneath their ever-reaching arms. And with that invitation, I think what the artist was doing was asking all of us, humans merely being, to bear witness to the changes all around us with something close to awe, instead of all the anxiety and the grasping and the ceaseless effort which are so acculturated into us by modern society. Imagine achieving something and celebrating it with the beauty and the abundance of its own impermanence. Imagine embracing the reality of change with something like awe instead of fear. Imagine creating something beautiful and letting go. Imagine stopping the ceaseless effort of keeping faith mostly with what was, in exchange for keeping faith with what will yet be. A steward of the future, even as it reforms or undoes or cracks or grows straight through everything we have built together. Imagine being unafraid. Plant redwoods, he said, and let them teach us about deeper time. You know, we live in a culture, as much in Southern California, honestly, as here in DC, we live in a culture that challenges us to make our mark, to leave our legacy. It is a strategy that we human beings have to deal with the terrifying truth that even the longest day is short, and that every single human life, even a life that changes everything, every single life is hurtling rapidly toward the mystery at its ending. However much the great Gautama the Buddha coached us to contemplate the conditioned existence in this fleeting world of one single human life, he taught us that life is like a tiny drop of dew, like a bubble floating in a stream, like a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, or a flickering lamp or an illusion, a dream. All existence is conditioned in this way, taught the Buddha, and yet, we human beings are creatures who are constantly negotiating with our own finitude. We are nervous about our tenuous brevity, and we move around in this world knowing that the impacts we make on that world and on each other, they are of necessity things that must happen quickly, sometimes even aggressively, often at a breakneck pace that is ostensibly designed to protect, to conserve what matters most to us. We want to make a difference, to protect our homes, our society, our structures, our congregations, and yet paradoxically, this drive to constantly and at ever greater pace make our mark more thoroughly, it has a way of turning itself right around from the deep need to conserve to a tendency toward consume. So often we are reaching so desperately So often individually, we are reaching to matter. We are seeking to protect. We are stretching to make an impact. We are fighting to rise above our brevity and our brethren in pursuit of the right answer that will hold off history, even as it lays claim to all of our efforts. We find ourselves pulled to this extended state of self-protection over and over again, when we choose models of society that lend toward competition rather than cooperation, when we find ourselves in a position of defending ourselves against each other, as if sustenance and hope and purpose are scarce resources that will slip right through our fingers like time, and the only way to grab hold of them is to hoard them, to defend them from each other, as if mutuality is a greater risk than interconnection. And so I find that we are governed by this anxiety. We are breathless in our grasping, in our desperation as quickly as possible to make a difference. We move quickly and carelessly through our relationships. We move quickly and carelessly over land that is not ours to consume, working always to impact the world by outdoing our neighbors. We leave literal scorched earth behind us. We do this not because we are horrible or evil or even particularly individually misguided. I am a universalist after all, which means I believe in people, that each and every one of us has the heart of the holy within us. And yet, when we are anxious, when we move too fast, when we strive too gingerly to make a difference, when we do these things, we hurt each other and we forget that there are other ways beyond all this striving. There are stories about how to make a difference that are told in longer arcs. There are beings in this world who leave their mark thoroughly, gloriously, in deeper time than our own small lives, and who do so without scarring or scorching or laying claim to what was never meant to be claimed in the first place. There are ways of being in this world that acknowledge our brevity while making space for something so much larger than one lifetime's anxious grasping. There are lessons from old growth and deeper time, if we can just pause our anxious spinning long enough to learn them. If we would stop patching all the holes in the fabrics of our fraying institutions long enough to listen and notice and learn. We can do this. We can meet the future of our congregations, our lives, our nation, without clinging or consuming or competing. We can do it. We can make it through without consenting to turn all our lives into a contest, if we take some lessons from those who live in deeper time. You might know by pure biomass that what one might call the largest single living organism in this entire world is this single stand of quaking aspen that grows in Utah. It's called the Pando Grove, and that single grove of trees, its vast reach covers 108 acres. It's estimated to weigh about 6,000 tons. From above or among the Pando Grove, it looks just like a forest of thousands upon thousands of individual trees, living, growing, dying, leaving a trail of dead leaves and generational growth behind them. And yet from within, on both the cellular and subsurface levels, one sees a deeper truth that all of those seemingly individual trees are in fact just one clonal colony of a single tree. They are genetically identical. They are in fact one single male aspen with a massive and interwoven root system that is several thousand years old. It is one plant on 108 acres, sending out shoots of itself over and over again toward a deeper time than any of us could imagine. For thousands of years, it has stood there, silently replicating itself, quaking in the breezes that never cease to blow, a trembling giant beneath the branches that reach overhead. It faithfully tells a story that we could learn, that is so much more ancient than all of our narratives of hope and history. a single tree on 108 acres, dwelling in time out of time. The pando is one being, much as we are, because it is fundamentally one thing, an I that is also a thou, a system that carries more truth than any of the individuals that falls within it. You know, on the very cutting edge of science, we find the astonishing reality that even a forest itself, for all of its diversity and complexity, much like a society, a forest itself is in fact something much closer to a single interconnected organism. Beneath the earth, bridges of fungi connect individual trees into networks which literally serve to redistribute wealth and sustenance from one tree to another. The great indigenous author Robin Wall Kimmerer has said, in this way, the fungus beneath the trees, it functions as a kind of Robin Hood. They take from the rich and give to the poor so that all the trees arrive at the same carbon surplus at the same time. They weave from themselves webs of reciprocity, giving and taking. In this way, the trees all act as one being because the fungi have connected them through unity survival, all flourishing mutual. Soil, fungus, tree, squirrel, boy, all are beneficiaries of the same reciprocity. And so the events occurring in the spanning years of any given tree, they are recorded forever in its structure. The oak never loses the mark from droughts that spark the dust bowl. The poplar always bears the scar from the pruning hook. So it is with us. However much we may strive, we may seek to make our difference individually and alone, the shape and the scope and the particular arrangement of our being, it represents all the sum total of the interactions which we have felt in our lives, including the interaction between the possibilities we were endowed with at our birth and the experiences that surround us since those first wailing breaths we take. In the rings of our own souls, we bear the marks of what we have seen and what we have known. We bear the marks of our fears and our anxieties. We bear the marks of those who caught us when we fell, who gave of themselves to keep us moving when we could not tend ourselves alone. All of this is etched into our being, and still so often we are anxious and worried and weary, fighting to leave our mark behind so thoroughly that we forget the marks we make when we attend to each other and feel empathy and awe on a scale that surpasses our own personal, fleeting, individual experience. Perhaps in times like these, every single thing depends upon this: our ability to feel something larger than our own anxious spinning, to care not only for ourselves, but for all those impacted by us, including the generations who will bear on their souls both the marks of our skill and the scars we leave behind. Perhaps our work as people of progressive faith is not to make a mark upon this world, no matter how beautiful, that will last forever. Perhaps our work is to make choices that we need to make out of connective empathy for the whole, of which we are only the smallest part, and to stand before the reality of change with awe instead of grasping. The great philosopher Ian McGilchrist, he recently wrote something that I think is at the very heart of what progressive religion in these days is all about. He said, "This is what I wish for people, that they would make contact again with the vision of a world that is not a heap of pointless fragments, that is not chaotic, ugly, and without meaning, which is not just one in which we are the playthings of chance and embroiled in a war of all against all, but a world which is beautiful, intrinsically complex, rich, conscious, and responsive." The trees reach out for each other, friends. The sustenance of life itself moves from root to root. All things are held in a network that does not let us go, does not let us down, and does not let us off the hook. We are each other's. and we belong to the span of history, even as we struggle to make ourselves known and relevant in the narrow days we are given. In this way, congregational life, what it is you're doing here in Laguna Beach this Sunday, what I do every Sunday in Bethesda, Maryland, congregational life is not about conserving everything we have built, the programs or the buildings or the plans. It is not the protection of these temples that house our communities, though if there is a building fund at the UU Fellowship of Laguna Beach, you should still give to it. Ministry is not about conserving what was. It is not about making our mark. It is about cultivating a compassionate awareness that none of it was ours to hold on to in the first place, that every single temple we build is designed to change, and every program we create to serve each other is an edifice growing next to a mighty tree, a structure that will give way to new forms, all attended by the old growth and the ancient faithful network of relationships that can hold it all. As we move forward, your congregation and mine, this nation we share, this ever-changing faith of Unitarian Universalism, as we move forward in the midst of great transformation, may mutual care percolate through the root systems we have built for each other. May we learn from those beings all around us who hold time less anxiously than we do. And may we make our way forward together, planting redwoods that will outlast all of our greatest efforts along the way. Amen. Blessed be. Our hymn is one written onto many Unitarian Universalist souls, Spirit of Life. I hope you'll join us.
Please be seated. And if you have lit it at this time, I invite you to extinguish it as we extinguish the chalice here in the sanctuary until we come together again. And Reverend Ladd will lead us in some closing words and benediction as we extinguish our chalice here in the sanctuary.
As we take this light that we have kindled out into the waiting world, may the truth that makes us free, the love that casts out fear, and the hope that never dies, guide us and those we love, and those we do not love, forward together till the day spring breaks and all the shadows flee away. Amen.
The favorite part of my day every Sunday, coming here and singing this song with you guys. A tradition here at the UUFLB, we close each service with the voice of Carol and the words, "Let there be peace on earth." So I invite you to rise, join in a circle if you would like, and Carol is going to take us off. And I know you can't hear me, but take it away, Carol.
Take it away, Carol, just in case you were wondering.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ladd. Fantastic.